Okay, you're watching this video, so I'm going to assume that you're currently knee-deep in the middle of a writing project of some kind, or maybe you do writing as a hobby. You could be a creative writer, you could be writing short stories, or you could be writing a novel like I am. You could be writing poetry, you could even be a screenwriter, you could even be writing some kind of non-fiction, whatever. But the point is, you're watching this because perhaps in some way you're having doubts, or maybe you've reached some kind of bump in the road when it comes to your writing, or maybe you feel like you're not quite good enough in your writing skill, or that you still have a long way to go, or if you're wondering if the effort is even worth it. And hey, if that applies to you, that's okay. I think every single artist, writer or otherwise, goes through those bumps throughout their whole journey. And just because your work or your writing, maybe it hasn't been published or it hasn't seen a particular audience or gained any degree of accolades or notoriety, that doesn't mean that you're not a writer. I personally want to strip away this idea that the only way that you can gain the title of writer or author is by gaining that kind of professional recognition. Even if you never actually sell a painting that you've ever painted, that doesn't mean that you're not a painter. Or just because you never sell any of the pottery that you make, it doesn't mean that you're not a potter. I really want to lift that stigma. For me, personally, I was still confident in the fact that I was a writer even from the very beginning of my writing journey. Now, I dove a little bit into the deep end when my first ever writing project was a massive full-scale novel. It started off as a really tiny little daydream that became an idea, that became a couple of notes in a notebook that eventually became a full first draft. And while I was writing that first draft, I never sat around questioning whether or not I was truly a writer. The only thing that I really knew was that I loved doing it, and I wanted to keep doing it. And that was what mattered to me. So if you are part of that audience that are having doubts about your writing or your journey as a writer, or if you're just having a bit of a rough patch or a bit of writer's block, I just want to tell you that you're not alone, and that no matter what, you are a writer. I'm going to assume that you're watching this video because you, like me, have an idea, you have a story, some type of message that you want to give to your audience, and you want to tell it through this really beautiful art of writing. And so, I will say that with any art, I must encourage that if you're going to attach yourself to a hobby like this, by all means, put your all into it. But also be easy on yourself. You probably already know that pursuing an art like writing purely for financial gain or some kind of recognition is usually a waste of time, and it's often pretty counterproductive. It can apply to a lot of other occupations as well, but if you really want to go anywhere with any art form, you obviously need to have a genuine passion for it. You have to love doing what you do. And for an art like writing, it requires as much dedication as it does love. Sitting around waiting for inspiration to arrive isn't going to do you a lot of favors. Simple things like habit or discipline and consistency will be around when inspiration isn't. Now, on your best days, inspiration is going to stop on by when all of those other virtues are at your side. It's kind of like that one friend that's really flaky when it comes to making plans. So anyway, you have this idea in your head that's become a story, that's become a cast of characters that's now about to turn into some sort of story or a novel like mine. And then you had that moment where you sat down at your laptop for the first time and you made a conscious decision to finally bring that story to life. Because that's exactly what happened to me. And I didn't burden myself with high expectations. The only thing that really mattered to me was that this was suddenly something that I genuinely wanted to do, not only because I wanted to, but because I really enjoyed the process of creation, of art, of creative writing as a whole. So when I finally sat down at my own laptop and I had a story ready to go, I just sat down and paced myself with a daily goal in mind. I established a clear goal for myself that I would have a finished first draft, no matter how terrible it was, by the end of the year. So I wrote a prologue, largely because I felt it was a requirement to have a prologue in a fantasy novel of all things. And so that just seemed really easy enough. And the prologue was very brief, and it wasn't perfect, but I liked it anyway, and it seemed easy enough. So then I decided, no matter how hard or rushed, I would write 500 new words in this story that I had. And then the next day, I'd write another 500, and so on. 500 became 1,000 words a day. I blinked, and the next thing I knew, I had a complete first draft with 3 months left in the year to spare. It was a long-winded, slow-trek, cheesy first draft, but it was a first draft nonetheless. And I tell you what, I really enjoyed that rush of writing that first draft, regardless of how bad it was. But the key thing was the baby steps. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I knew that the story I wanted wasn't going to be carved out in a single day. I knew that the manuscript could be improved. I hardly knew anything in terms of character arcs or properly structured dialogue or integration of key themes, but the fact of the matter is, I was doing it. And not only I was doing it, but that I loved it. Creating this world, these characters, this story, these lessons that I could teach, and these ideals that I could reflect in my art and in my writing. I didn't really care if what I wrote was bad. In fact, I knew that it was going to be bad. But I also knew that there was going to be time in the future to learn more about creative writing and to make the manuscript better with each draft. I think it's really, really critical, and I think just about every other writer will also contest to this, that you seriously do not want to be editing as you are writing. The fact of the matter is, as long as I enjoyed the process, the whole journey itself, that was what mattered to me. Stephen King makes it really clear in his biography on writing that there's a significant difference in writing with the door open and then writing with it closed. It's a time where you're writing purely for yourself, without any bias or nitpicking, and then there is a time to finally put on your editing hat when that first poor draft is now written start to finish. Listen, there's a time to refine your writing, and there's a time to just simply write, and then write some more. Then read a bit, and then maybe even read about writing. But sometimes the best way to become great at something is to just buckle down and do it no matter what the result. For instance, here is my very first drawing of my main character. My very, very first, somewhere around 5 years ago. And here is one of my more recent drawings of him now. Do you see the progression between one and the other? The difference is night and day. And I picked up a lot of skills on how to draw better and write better. But here's the thing. I did not have any less fun drawing the first one than I did drawing the current one. I seriously feel sometimes that when people pick up a new hobby, I think they often become so preoccupied with learning how to become objectively good at it. So much so that if you're not careful, it can become such an obsession or a drag to improve constantly that we often lose sight of why we picked up the hobby in the first place, and worst of all, lose sight of why we fell in love with doing it. If there's anything that I want you to take away from this video, is that I never want you to forget why you write and how badly you want to achieve your writing goals, if you have them. And seriously though, it wouldn't hurt to have a few. Another note that I want to add on is that art will take time. it'll take love, and in most cases, it'll take some degree of sacrifice in the name of your passion and your passion to express yourself. And take it from me and many other writers, writing can be a lonely art, and networking is super important in this industry, so keep your friends, your family, and your supporters close. And above everything else, if the pain of not doing it hurts more than the days where doing it is hard, if all of the bad days of bad writing and writer's block pale in comparison to the regret of not even starting at all, that is when you know that this is what you ought to be doing. And if you can't put your all into your chosen art, why even do it at all? It's like what Charles Bukowski famously said, don't try. But if you're gonna try, give it your all. Okay, I'm gonna wrap things up now, but to conclude, I'm just gonna say this. Anyone can cook, but it takes a great deal more of passion, dedication, and discipline to become a chef. In that same vein, anyone can write, but as a sort of reverse, I don't want you to be hard on yourself on what defines you as a writer. Even if you gave up on a short story halfway through because it no longer interested you, you are a writer. Even if the rejection letters keep on coming, you are a writer. Even if you write a small poem that no one else will ever read, you are a writer. If you're a beginner watching this for some support, encouragement, and advice about breaking out into the world of writing, be it book, screenplay, or really any kind of writing at all, you have all of those things from me to you. If I've given you something useful to take away from this, if I've given you that little push to start your own writing journey, I really couldn't ask for more. Thanks for watching. Wow, okay. So this only took me like a day and forever to actually get this video together, but it's finally done. It's been my first ever crack at video making or video editing, and for a first try, I'm really proud of the way that it turned out. I wanted to create this video to not only showcase my really slow but eventful journey of writing my first novel, but also as a bit of encouragement for any other writers or any artists really who are sort of struggling or stuck in a rut right now. I think us as artists, it's really important for us to reach out to other people, especially in the age of the internet, to sort of build a community and support one another, and hopefully this video's done that. So there's a lot of stuff that I plan to do on this channel in the future. I want to talk about books, films, storytelling, reading or writing tips or advice, really just anything. A bunch of video essays just talking about things that I really enjoy and really want to share. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, consider subscribing and hang around until the next video comes out. Better yet, if you've got any ideas for what I should talk about in the future, leave a comment below. I'd really like to hear it. And on top of that, if you know an artist, writer, friend who's sort of stuck in a rut as well, flick them this video too. Anyways, I'm rambling on. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that fluff. If you really enjoyed what you watched here today and you want to see more stuff like this, you can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram with the links you see on screen. Any drawings that I'm usually working on, I tend to upload them on my Instagram as well, so if you want to see bits and pieces of my art, definitely check that out. I also have a weekly blog that I upload every Saturday, both to my Medium page and also my official author website, Daniel Cromer Author at Squarespace, so check that out if you've got a moment. And if you really, really want to support me, you can also come see me at Buy Me a Coffee. I upload a bunch of exclusive stuff there, a bunch of short stories or works in progress that I'm working on, updates regarding my novel, any drawings that I'm working on, or even just having your say in what I should write about next on my blog, or even what videos you want to see in the future. A bunch of exclusive stuff that you won't see anywhere else, so definitely check that out as well. But anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.